number 4. We read together 1 Peter and Ephesians chapter 3, verse 21. And I just want to carry on to commit the year to these things and so on, and I will explain a little bit more as we move along. So far, we have been speaking in the past, in the first 6 months, to the universal church, and I don't need to repeat everything that has been said. It's a tremendous curve of learning for us. I've been dreaming to teach ecclesiology for years, and I decided to do it in the context of the local church, and we're still in it, of course. What have we done so far, beloved, concerning the local church? We gave it a definition. I gave you a little paragraph. It's probably hiding somewhere in your notes. We have defined it, and I'm not going to repeat that so far. We have also been looking at 13 purposes for the local church: to glorify God, like the emphasis for tonight, to send missionary and name them. We have 13 of them, and we have looked at that here together. Now, why this message today? Because today I'm going to talk about types of church government, okay, or types of church governance. So I need your full compassion and your full, from within, if you want, participation. First, it's a message that might be once in a lifetime for you. I'm going to say words that you might not heard before and so on. Explain what is the types of the church governance. Secondly, it is important, since we need to go back to the purpose number 13 from 1 Peter, which I read for you, which I will read again in a moment, in order to glorify God. When we want to glorify God, we need to walk in obedience with the text. God has one way to be glorified, and when He sees us striving, at least, to have the proper church authority, governance, and government, this is something that He will delight into. I read for you 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 11. I can go back to that. Again, the importance of glorifying God. I'm going to go back to this for a moment. 1 Peter chapter 4. It says this here again, in the context of teaching right now. Whoever speaks, it does encompasses all the gifts that necessitate speaking. It is to do so as one who speaks the utterances of God. It talks about prophecy at that time, because when Peter wrote, the gift of prophecy was still given, and it was given prophetically, orally, teaching, exhortation, evangelism. These are gifts that necessitate a speaker, like I do right now, preaching or teaching, call it whatever you want, what you do when you evangelize, when you exhort, and so on. And then you have the servants. Whosoever, verse 11, serves is to do as one who is serving by the strength which God supplies, so that in all things may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom belong the glory, the dominion, and so on. Serve, it's whatever. And from the word serves there, this is exactly where we got the word deacon from. A deacon or deaconess is a servant. Those who are folding chairs, helping out, cleaning up, making photocopies for people, helping the church, painting the outside, name it, that's what we call deaconship. All of this have to be done properly under a God-designed government. I have no better word than government. Try for a moment to ignore government issue of outside in the world. It's a proper word to use, governance or government. It has to be done in an orderly manner, not disorderly. And that's what we will be looking at right now. The third purpose, if you want, for this message, this is not head knowledge. Okay? Tonight, the message to give you is very difficult. Perhaps it's going to be boring to an extent, but you need, once in our lifetime, to be exposed to a message like this. So it's not head knowledge. It can be labeled sometimes as unnecessary, but it is necessary for your growth and for God's glorification. We cannot grow without receiving, or at least one time in our lifetime, a message of that kind. Not because it is my word, it's because it's necessary. Theologians go through that, they study it, but there is a lot of compromise to face sometimes. Number 4, I will explain church government, starting with the less scriptural towards the biblical model. And I will not have time today, Andreas, to address the biblical model. This will be kept for next week. Then I will explain 3 things in details in the future during the month: eldership, deaconship, then the responsibility of the flock. Because that's what I need to be honest with you, call you. When a person pastors a church, officially or non-officially, like I do if you want to, because I don't want any titles for the first year in that church. We call the people that partake the flock. Don't be insulted by that, it's perfect. But the flock, sometimes they are kept in ignorance concerning the responsibility that they have. And you have great responsibility as flock people. Those who come, attend, receive the message, and go home after that. It's way more significant than coming, making a presence, giving occasionally or regularly, and go back home. Your role is absolutely important and necessary. However, it has to be done properly. I commit now, Francois, to be in subjection to His Word, in love, and on your part, I expect a lot of grace here and accountability to me. Keep me accountable. Okay? I'll do my best to be in love, but yet the truth will have to be said. Don't be offended by anything. I don't think you will, but this is something that I agonize with this message today. We come into the core of the message right now. I'm going to talk about types of church government right now, 4 of them to begin with. Just outline of it, because you can read books about this that thick. The first one, if you are making notes, since I don't have an outline, and now you'll be disappointed because I cannot send you to the text right now. I can't right now. The national church. The national church. The national church, it's mostly a product of church history rather than biblical teaching. So it's church history, it's not biblical teaching. The national church, the head of the church, the head of the state, rather, is the head of the church. Example, whoever is the king or the queen of England is the head of the Church of England. I have English people among you, I know, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's talk about the Lutheran Church in Germany, same thing. In the New Testament, there is no such a thing. It's not allowed by the New Testament. So I don't need to tell you that this is not the proper biblical format. Because the church and the state have to be separated. The church is not the state and the state is not the church. It's 2 entities that has to remain distinct. And those who do have this format, they bring among the church many, many unbelievers. So it is not the biblical form of government, the national church. The second one that I would like to talk to you about is the hierarchical government or Episcopalian government. That's why I said it might be a little bit boring. Hierarchical or Episcopalian. And when I say Episcopalian here, I'm not talking about the domination. I'm talking about the government here. Okay? They have rank above one another. The church for them, the hierarchical or Episcopalian, is ruled by what you call, you know that term, a bishop. And the bishop has the power to ordain other bishops and priests and so on. That type of church is mainly based upon apostolic succession. They believe that Peter was the first pope, and then they have a special priesthood that continued the line of pope and so forth. And they teach the continuous lineage ordination like the apostles were ordained by God and so on. Okay? Once again, this type of church government is nowhere to be seen in the New Testament. It was valid only in the first 3 centuries, okay, of the church. No, it was not valid during the first 3 centuries. It came to being in the 4th century with the Roman Empire. So therefore, you have the Roman Catholic Church. Okay? Your priest or the Pope is said to be a descendant of the lineage of Peter, and they believe that the Pope is an apostle and so on. And for them, not Paul, but Peter was the first Pope. And they have the concept of clergy. Okay? The clergy, most of the time, is separated from the laity. The laity is the common people. The clergy is all the priesthood and so on. There is a set of rules for the clergy and a set of rules for the common people. Roman Catholicism is this way. Episcopal, the denominational church, is this way also. The Methodist Church, they have that type of government, and the Lutheran Church, they have this type of government. Okay? Don't be offended. Nowhere to be seen in the scriptures. It's not a valid form of government, despite the fact that many denominations still have that type of government. You still with me? Just listen to that right now. That's what I said. We need to go through a message like this. And I will explain a little bit later how difficult it is for me to do so. But I have compassions. Now outside my notes, I have compassions for some of your pastors when you attend a different church because they cannot speak this. They can't. Otherwise, they would lose their job. But here, with the freedom in Christ that we have to teach what we need to teach from the Bible, I am privileged yet very nervous to be able to teach it. I can't be fired because no board have hired me. So bear with me. I agonized this message for you. But if I keep it hidden from you, I cannot be in good accountability to the Word of God. Beloved, preaching this, I have nothing to gain. I'm very serious. The only thing that I will gain, it's rewards in the future, because I was not shy to speak about this. If there are people that can gain something out of it, it's you. It's going to be forgotten in a moment, but at least you're told. The third one, it's called the federal or Presbyterian form of government. Okay? That's the closest. That's the closest to the biblical form. It's close, which we will see next week. They have a representative form of government, and it recognizes the authority of a local church. I kind of like that. It recognizes the authority of a small assembly like this. They have ruling elders. Okay? They have ruling elders into the federal or Presbyterian form here. But the ruling elders are elected by the membership. And you know about membership. You guys are churchgoers, unless you are new with us and never went to a church, but I know it's not the issue. They also have a teaching elder, singular, elected by other ministers. Not by the congregation, this one, but the teaching elder is elected by other minister. They have the presbytery. It's all ministers, the ruling elders, and the teaching elders. So all those in authority are called the presbytery. Okay? That's those who have the capacity to call the shot. And then they have the synod. The synod, that's the General Assembly. C-S-Y-N-O-D. They have elders and deacons. It's biblical. That's what we will see next week. They have elders and deacons. It's biblical. But they have two things that are unscriptural, unbiblical. They do two things that is not proper to the scriptures. Number one, the ruling elders are elected by the congregation. This is improper concerning to the text. Secondly, usually they have only one teaching elders, and the biblical format asks to have a plurality. Plurality is two. Okay? It's above two. 2, 3, 4. A plurality of teaching elders. The Bible asks for a plurality of teaching elders. The federal or Presbyterian form is followed by these guys. The Presbyterian, the Dutch Reform, the Christian Reform, among others. So these guys, the Presbyterian Church, the Dutch Reformed Church here on Trunk Road and so on, the Christian Reformed on Trunk, that's the one I have in mind here, that's the type of government that they have in a nutshell. It gets way more complicated than this, but that's the type of government that they have. All right? Are you still with me? We look now at number 4, and I wish that the rapture would occur now. Now. Number 4 is the congregational form of government. The congregational form of government. The congregational form of government is the belief that no man should have authority over the local church. That's what they believe. No man should have authority over the local church, because for the congregational form of government, the source of authority is with the people, with the congregation. Important matters are decided by the congregants without respect to other churches or hierarchies. They vote, ministers, and so on. Important matters of the church are voted by the congregants without having to depend on other churches and without having to respect hierarchies like the three one that I said to you before that. This type of government is followed by most of the Baptists, Evangelical Free, United Church of Christ, and some independent Bible churches. So mostly the Baptists, in all the ramifications that you can have, they are Congregationalist government form. Okay? Also the Evangelical Free, United Church of Christ, and some independent Bible church. It is a very, very popular form of government. It's major in North America and over the planet and so forth. However, the question is it the biblical form of government? It's not because it's very popular that this is scriptural. And that's why the part is difficult for me right now. August Hopkins Strongs. He was a Baptist minister. He's known by Strongs, A.H. Strong. His name is Augustine Hopkins. Okay? He is a theologian of the Baptist line. He is a Baptist theologian. He came up with 5 arguments, mainly outside the context. In 5 arguments that he has for the congregational form of government, 5 times he quotes the scriptures or based the scriptures outside the context, unfortunately. The number 1 argument that he says, it is the duty of the whole church to preserve the unity of the church. It's a true statement. It is the responsibility of the unity of all of us, beloved, to keep the unity of the church. It's a true statement, but he uses passages like Romans chapter 12, verse 6. I'm going to do this one for you. He used Romans chapter 12, verse 6. It goes like this. Since we have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, each of us is to exercise them accordingly, if prophecy according to the proportion of his faith. Is it the passage that talk about church governance? Not even close. What is it talking about? Gifts. Okay? A second scripture that he uses is 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. He uses 2 Corinthians chapter 13, 11. I'll do this one for you. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. I come to this. Chapter 13, 11. Finally, brethren, rejoice, be made complete, be comforted, be like-minded, live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you. Does it talk about church governance? Not even close. So unfortunately, it's quoted outside the context. He uses also to preserve unity, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2, and Philippians chapter 1, verse 27. The second reason that he says that the congregational government is the way to go, it's to maintain purity of doctrine and practice. To maintain purity of doctrine and practice. In that case, he uses 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15. What is 1 Timothy? You probably don't know. Don't answer because I don't want to embarrass you. When you read 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus, that's what we call the pastoral epistles. It's Paul speaking to Titus and Timothy because they are pastors. So, they use 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15, when it says, 2 Timothy, the chapter 3, verse 15, but in the case that I am delayed, I write to you that you will know how one ought to conduct himself in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and support of the truth. So, it's for the church leader. It's not necessarily for all the congregation. It's just something that the church leader should strive to do. Thirdly, they favor congregationalism, that the ordinances is committed to the whole church. They say that the ordinances are committed to the whole church. For this, Mr. Strong used Matthew 28, 19 to 20. And also, it says nothing about church leadership, and not church leadership, but church governance and so on. Okay? In Acts chapter 1, verse 15, they use it for the third issue. Number 4, bear with me. To elect officer. On this one, you come with me in Acts chapter 1. Please come, take your time and come in Acts. Acts chapter 1. Can somebody just crack the door open, please? A few inches. Acts chapter 1, 23 to 26. Mr. Strong's, if you study his systematic theology, I'm not putting this together right now. I'm not inventing this. It's based on research. Because A.H. Strong, he wrote a systematic theology. I'm not demeaning the man. Okay? Because if you study him for the attributes of God, and if you study A.H. Strong for the names of God and different things, right on the dot. But here, there is a lack of respect for the context. Acts chapter 1, verse 23 to 26, it's to elect officer. They use this, chapter 1 of Acts, 23 to 26 here. So they put forward 2 men, Joseph called Barsabbas, and Matthias. And they prayed and said, You, Lord, know the hearts of all men. Show which one of these 2 you have chosen to occupy the ministry of apostleship from Judas turn aside to go to his own place. And they drew lots. They drew lots. It's not voting. And the Baptists are very strong to vote people. And I'm not going to ask you if for the last 5 pastors that we've had, if you drew lots. It's no, you never did. They never did. So once again, the scriptures are slightly outside the context. Come in Acts 6, same topic, to elect officer. Acts chapter 6, verse 3. Okay? Acts chapter 6, let's go to verse 1 first. Now at this time, while the disciples were increasing in number, a complaint arose on the part of the Hellenistic Jews against the native Hebrews, because their widows were being overlooked in the daily serving. So the 12 apostles summoned the congregation, looks great, of the disciples, and said, It is not desirable for us to neglect the word of God in order to serve tables. Bear with me. Therefore, brethren, select from among you, he's talking to congregation right now, 7 men of good reputation, full of the spirit of wisdom, whom we may put in charge of this task. We may put this charge of this task here. Go to 5. The statement found approval with the whole congregation. They chose Stephen, full of the faith and full of the Holy Spirit, and Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, and these guys. And these they brought before the apostles, and after praying, they laid their hands on them. They is the apostles here. So the congregation was only asked to recommend people, which is fine. But the final decision in that context here was belonging to the apostles. Because that's the apostles at that time that could discern the gifting of the people and so on here. They were appointed by the apostles, not voted nor elected by the congregation. You have another example in Acts chapter 15. If you look at the context, it's not dealing with the congregation, but making decision by the apostles and the elders and so forth. Number 5, they say to exercise church discipline because Mr. Strong's teach that it is the power of the whole church to do church discipline. They use Matthew 18:17. Doesn't talk about church government. And they use the issue of Paul with the immorality that was there in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Okay, so that's what they use for the 5 arguments here, which I would like to repeat. The first argument is to preserve the unity. The scriptures are not talking about it concerning church government, because that's the topic here. To maintain the purity of doctrine, that the ordinances is committed to the whole assembly, to elect officer, and to exercise church discipline. All right? That's what they use. Despite of its popularity, and it's very popular, the congregational form of government, it is like the other form. It's not biblical. Okay? It's not found in the scriptures. It's not substantiated by the text itself at all. All the teaching of it and their comments on that are taken outside of the scriptures. Show me mercy here, because I have people here that belong to that. We're not here to create schism. I told you a moment ago that this is a privilege that I have to be able to do so. A person that is hired under these circumstances cannot deliver a message 15 weeks or 2 weeks after he's hired, because the board will say, "Thank you so much. You don't go in line with our Constitution." And it leads to compromise. But in this place, since we are striving towards an obedience to the Word of God, that's why we're called a Duncan Independent Bible Church, we should strive together to have things okay from the beginning. And next week, I will explain to you what is the proper government with the terms attached to it, who should be in position of leadership and who should not be in position of leadership. Another point that I want to make on my own, that I read also in all the researches that I did, the congregational form of government, you have a lot of people among the flock that are in a state of immaturity. When they vote, sometimes they vote on the basis of like or dislikes. I have the proper necktie on that Sunday, I'm voting in. Okay? They vote. I like the guy, I like the way he comes across and so on. Do I know my stuff? Do they ask the board of that church? Do they ask the proper question theologically? Are you amillennialist? Are you anti-Semitic? What is your state with the people of Israel? They cannot ask these questions, not because they are dumb, simply because they do not know. They go on the basis of the resume of the person. The resume, have a lot of experience, speaks well, done this and done that, and is voted in. Please understand that with me. And you certainly don't need to go to your church and say everything, because they won't like me anymore. And I love to be loved. It's for you that I do it. Out front like this. So, although it's very popular, number 4, it is still not the proper format. I conclude. It's not an easy message for a man like me. I wrote that down in my notes right now. I would like to conclude with hope for you and assurance. Christ is the head of the church. Amen. You can go to an Anglican church. You can go to Roman Catholicism. My sister and I was brought up. We were not practicing the religion, but we were brought up to it. If you like your church, you like your people, stay with your church, unless they go apostate and teach crooked things of the faith. The head of the church is Christ. and you have this assurance. Your head is Christ. Is your church healthy? This is not my business to look at it. Christ is the head of the church. There is no doubt about it. Colossians 1:18. He wants you involved. There is also no doubt about it. Do you know what I crave for? Apart from a burger with fries somewhere with vinegar and salt on it. Do you truly know, and you know what I crave for? You know what I crave for. I crave for a person that will get me in my office and say, François, I would like to preach a message. I would like it properly. I'm going to pass on that. I have studied a lot, and if you give me an opportunity, I would like to preach this. Then we sit down with the man, and what would you like to preach? And this and that. Wow. Do you know where I would be? Not here, because the person will be intimidated. Right here. Oh, yeah, it's good. It's good to sit down sometimes. I would like it. That's what I crave for. Is it going to happen? I doubt it. I doubt it.
If you pray for it.
I will. And you will pray for it. Beloved, what was my point as I conclude right now? He wants you involved. But before getting involved, we need to gather to know where we are going. What is scriptural to do and what is unscriptural to do. You may feel good, but the glorification of God, and God is glorified when He sees a person like me and you striving to obey His word. Are we going to make mistake? It's an absolute. You have the king of mistakes there with a capital K. My sister can share mistakes that I did, not before I became a believer. All of them while in belief. Dangerous mistakes. He wants you involved. It's for your benefit in totality. A message like this, like I preach like this, it's for your benefit. He provided us with a model to submit to. There is no doubt about it also. Why? For your benefit in totality. Never give up, beloved, as I close right now, in striving to know more. And never give up also in striving to apply. Okay? Always do it in love. Because if you teach these things, if you mention these things, you will be facing adversity. It's an absolute. But again, it will help you to pray for your pastors. Because you cannot ask your pastor to teach against congregationalism if you go to a Baptist church. It's going to create schism in the body. You will understand your man where sometimes you will feel him a little bit compromising, avoiding subject. A privilege here that we don't have to face. And God will never ask you to do something impossible. Specifically when we strive to give Him the glory. A Spirit-led manner, that's His will here. Never give up in striving to know more and apply it. In a Spirit-led manner, that's His will. You don't go on the spark of a message. And it was not my best message. I prefer to expound on the angel of the Lord when he met Abraham and he gave them something to eat, and the angel of Jehovah ate and challenged you, where did the food go? Because it was the pre-incarnate Christ. He ate. He ate the food prepared by Abraham. Where did it go, that food? Tell me. I don't know where it went. It was the pre-incarnate Christ. That's what I prefer to expound. But for the year ahead, and I told you, when I started the local church with you, I said, pros and cons. You will pass the door. Beautiful message. I liked it. It was it lift up. You will pass the door some nights. I disagree with François. Disagree. It's fine. Keep coming. We'll learn together. You're loved at that place. You are loved at that place. And that message, knowing François Sylvie, was not meant to demean anybody. Quite the opposite. I did not mean to demean anybody right now. Quite the opposite. To uplift those who have a thirst and an openness of heart to learn the truth. That's why the message was meant to be. And I've neglected it. There is no message of salvation tonight. So I hope that I don't have an unsaved. I don't think so. Looking at all of you, not making too much eye contact, I do believe that all of you do sustain the relationship with the Messiah, that He died for you, was buried, and rose again. Thank you for nudging at me. It's because there's an absence of evangelism right now, and there is an absence of reading at length the Scriptures, which I struggle with. But I need to address these issues, and I did, and I want to thank you for your love with it. Would you stand with me, please, beloved?